Okay, our reading at present concerns the fourth meditation. The fourth meditation of Descartes is one of my favorite. It's not the most important philosophically, perhaps, which would probably be considered the third meditation, but I find it the most enjoyable to read. It's clearer and more accessible than the third meditation, so if you struggle with the third meditation, you may find the fourth meditation to be more to your liking. It can still be a bit of a challenge for students. It never becomes easy as such. Now, here's the problem with the fourth meditation. I am the creation of a perfect creator according to the third meditation. There should be something of the creator's perfection reflected in me. Yet, it is only too obvious to me that I am very mistake prone. So, how do I reconcile this? How do I reconcile that I am the result of a perfect creation process with the fact that I am very fallible? That is the subject of the fourth meditation. Now, in the course of the fourth meditation, he's going to discuss the free will problem, and I wish to say a few words about that in this opening video. Most students come to an introduction to philosophy class being what we refer to as libertarians. That is, they support the idea that humans have free will and that this free will implies that somehow human behavior and human decision making isn't subject to the laws of the natural sciences. In other words, somehow the natural sciences apply to everything, but they do not apply to human and maybe potentially even animal behavior. Now, that position may be common among the general public. It has very few defenders among philosophers. The reason is most philosophers think that natural laws have no exception. The natural laws are perfectly generalizable, that essentially human behavior is reducible to biology, biology is reducible to chemistry, chemistry is reducible to physics. So we obey the laws of physics every bit as much as billiard balls on a pool table. It's just a much more complex process. So philosophers have trouble accepting this libertarian position despite its popularity with the general public. Now, there are two other options, though, that philosophers tend to split on. Some of them become hard determinist, others become compatibilist. Now, a hard determinist is somebody who argues that humans do not have free will, that free will is a type of illusion. Now, that doesn't mean that all ethics goes out the window. There are some ethical positions, such as utilitarianism, that can be very easily combined with a view of free will, that it doesn't exist, with hard determinism. Likewise, a sentiment-based ethics can also be combined with hard determinism. So hard determinism says essentially humans do not have free will. The laws of nature have no exception. So we are perfectly determined by the laws of physics, ultimately, is what it would come down to. Now, the third position is the one that non-philosophers tend not to be aware of, and that is called compatibilism. And Descartes himself is a compatibilist with an interesting twist that he talks about in some of his other works, not in the Meditations. A compatibilist argues that essentially the laws of nature have no exception, on the one hand, yet human beings nonetheless still have a free will. The basic idea is essentially this. Having a free will is not a question of being able to act independently of the laws of nature. They say that is impossible, the compatibilist. But it's a question of having a very elaborate and complex psychology so that our determination to action is internal or undergoes a considerable internal processing and is not a sort of direct stimulus output situation, but there's all this rich internal psychology taking place between the stimulus and the output being behavior. Descartes takes up this position, but with the twist that he considers the laws of nature as not specifying direction. He basically neglects the distinction between vectorial quantities and scalar quantities, or if that's too complex, simply understand the laws of nature we understand today specify direction. For Descartes, they did not. Hence, he was free to say the laws of nature have no exception, but the human will can still specify the direction that we move. The generation after Descartes realized that position was not going to work, so they had to find some other solution. And the compatibilist tendencies already in Descartes were made explicit by by Leibniz and some of these later positions. So you have three basic positions with regard to the free will issue. Libertarians, free will means the capacity to violate the laws of nature, and they believe that such violations occur. Hard determinists, free will means to violate the laws of nature. So in this, they agree with the libertarians, but they deny that it occurs. And about half of all philosophers are hard determinists. The third view is compatibilism, which argues that free will does not mean a question of violating or not the laws of nature, but free will means having a very rich internal psychology. And they also argue that the laws of nature have no exception. So in this, they agree with the hard determinist. Now, before leaving you to the readings for the fourth meditation, I want to warn against a common misinterpretation that is made by students. They often assume that Descartes is saying that we make mistakes so that we may learn from them. Now, in and of themselves, that is not a bad idea. The point of making a mistake is perhaps so that we learn not to make it a second time. And they'll see our experiences as a type of testing ground. However, that is simply not something that Descartes says. The reason I'm stressing that here is I want to warn you against putting your own ideas into the text. Learn to attend to what the text is saying very carefully. Descartes does not take that position. He simply does not say that. So do not attribute that position to Descartes. Do not put your own ideas in the text. See what the author is saying and try to the best of your ability to understand what the author is saying. All right, so I leave you to the readings for the fourth meditation.